Hi, I'm Teal from Teal's Cuisine on behalf of Direct MS. In this video, I'll show you the foods that should be completely excluded, and I'll provide you with acceptable substitutes for these foods. The food products that need to be excluded are dairy, grains that contain gluten, legumes, and allergenic foods. The dairy, gluten grains, and legumes contains proteins that can potentially activate myelin-attacking immune cells. The allergenic foods can contribute to a leaky gut, which results in increased activation of the immune system. These topics are discussed in some detail in the science videos. First, I'll be looking at dairy products, which are linked to MS by a lot of scientific research. All dairy products need to be excluded from one's diet. Such products include milk, ice cream, all cheeses, yogurt, butter, and lactate products. Dairy products from other animals such as goats also have to be excluded. It's important to realize that milk proteins are often found in small amounts in many food products. For example, when you read the list of the ingredients on this chocolate bar, you see that it contains milk proteins and thus must be avoided. Here's another chocolate bar that, according to the listed ingredients, is dairy-free and can be an acceptable treat. The bottom line is that it's very important to read the ingredient list on all food products. Sometimes it's tricky to recognize milk proteins because of the different names they are given. In most instances, milk protein is identified as whey, casein or caseinates, skim milk powder, or milk solids. For example, on this base cell margarine, we read that there is whey powder in it and needs to be avoided. However, this base cell margarine does not contain any milk protein and can be included in one's diet. Milk is a very common food type for us, and we use it for baking, on our cereal, and as a beverage. The good news is that there are acceptable substitutes for dairy, and these are rice milk and almond milk. You'll find various brands of these types of milk in all major grocery stores. Rice-based ice cream and cheeses are also available, but watch out for milk proteins in some of these products. For example, this rice cheese is lactose-free, but it's not dairy-free. I must emphasize that soy milk is not an acceptable substitute for cow's milk because it's made from soybeans. Soybeans are legumes, which also have to be excluded, as I will discuss later. Another food type that needs to be excluded is grain that contains gluten. Gluten is a group of proteins found in common grains of wheat, barley, rye, and oats. Other very closely related gluten grains are triticale, bulgur, spelt, and kamut. Almost all baked goods and pasta made from gluten grains need to be excluded. Here we see some common gluten grain products. Once again, it's important to read ingredient labels on processed foods because many contain wheat or barley. An example of this would be various brand name soups. The good news is that there are a lot of gluten-free products in health food stores and grocery stores. Rice-based products are most common, and here are some of them. Overall, I suggest that brown or white rice flour be used for baking and thickening in most cases. However, there are gluten-free flours besides rice which can be used, and these include amaranth, arrowroot, buckwheat, quinoa, tapioca, and millet. Gluten can also be found in some beverages including beer, ale, whiskey, postum, and Ovaltine, and therefore should also be excluded. The third food type that has to be excluded is legumes, which include all beans and peas. These include kidney beans, peas, green beans, lentils, and soybeans. There are many products that contain soy, so it is important to read labels. You may be surprised to hear that peanuts are a legume and not a nut, and that all products containing peanuts must be avoided. Good substitutes for peanut butter include almond butter, cashew butter, and tahini. A variety of nuts, such as cashews, walnuts, and almonds, can be substituted for peanuts themselves. Carob, which is sometimes used as a substitute for chocolate, is also a legume and should be excluded. It's important to exclude foods which cause allergic reactions. The main reason for this is that such reactions cause a leaky gut, and this in turn leads to increased activation of the immune system. This is discussed in more detail in the science video on key concepts. The best way to determine which foods are allergenic is with an ELISA food allergy test, which can be arranged by a naturopath. Of course, foods which cause stomach pain and/or fatigue are most likely allergenic, and these should be avoided.